What is that, bro?
Hi guys, this video was not initially planned, but unfortunately, I have been asked to make it. How can I not say no? 5 to 7 minutes video wouldn't be so hard, right? Shit, my hand slipped again. How does one splash art led me to write about 85 pages of rough notes? I really be making it like the Mona Lisa. But anyways, I firstly would like to thank Beyonce for Sunday's drip marketing, because holy shit, it's just too good.
Parator Newsflash. This is an urgent broadcast. I repeat, this is an urgent broadcast.
Hello, this is Future Kit. I was contemplating whether to make this as a video or not again, and just thought a full shown note would be enough. But after some consideration, I decided to make this as part 1 for my All About Sunday series video. Therefore, in part 1, we will be talking about his splash art and themes that will possibly hint about his next appearance. In part 2, we will dive into the lore analysis of his kit, teasers, and trailers. In part 3, while this is still uncertain, we might discuss his appearance in the patch of his run. Why am I doing this? It's because I love him. Full shown notes are linked in my description, by the way. Let's go back to the past. As a disclaimer, this video isn't meant to dictate how the art should or must be perceived. Instead, it aims to offer a new perspective for everyone to consider. At the end of the day, how you interpret art is entirely up to you. So as being begged, I will not make an analysis. Rather, you guys are now trapped in my lecture, so pay attention because class has just started. It's undeniable how Sunday's splash art is inspired by some classical art masterpieces. There are plenty to mention, but unfortunately, I can't cover them all in one session. This is because I am not paid enough for this. Blame my manager. However, there's one piece that's especially worth diving into, as it provides a fundamental understanding for our discussion. This masterpiece is none other than Raphael's The Transfiguration. Now, you might be thinking, yeah, Sunday is depicting Jesus, floating in the air with a halo. Obvious similarity. But there's a deeper reason why the Transfiguration resonates so well with Sunday's splash art. And it's not just about what's on the surface. So, before we start our journey into analyzing Sunday's splash art, let's first take a closer look at the Transfiguration by Raphael itself. Raphael? No, not that Raphael. Yes, Raffaello Sanzio. He worked on the Transfiguration between 1516 and 1520, right at the peak of his career. What's fascinating is that this painting is considered a culmination of his artistic achievements. In other words, it's as though everything Raphael learned and mastered throughout his career is embodied in this single art. It's almost like his final masterpiece, as Raphael suddenly passed away in 1520, right before the painting was installed. For those who might not be familiar, the term transfiguration generally refers to a change or metamorphosis, often into a more beautiful or spiritual state. In Christian beliefs, it specifically describes an event where Jesus becomes radiant in divine glory upon a mountain, witnessed by his closest disciples. The Transfiguration was a key theme in classical art, symbolizing not only a biblical miracle, but a profound exploration of spiritual enlightenment. Now, what makes this particular painting the most famous, the most beautiful, and most divine, according to Giorgio Vasari, a renowned 16th century artist and biographer? At first glance, the Transfiguration might appear to capture a single moment, yet a closer look reveals it masterfully combines two separate biblical stories of different time and place into one harmonious narrative. To understand how, let's break down the composition. The painting is split into two distinct parts. In the upper section, you see Christ glowing with heavenly light, surrounded by Moses and Elijah. The apostles Peter, James, and John are shown on the ground shielding their eyes from the divine light, or in awe of the spectacle. This segment visually captures the biblical moment of Jesus Christ's transfiguration as recounted in the New Testament. Meanwhile, in the lower section we see a boy depicted in a state of convulsion, surrounded by his family and onlookers who appear distressed and are pleading with the apostles for help. However, the apostles are unable to heal the boy. This part of the painting illustrates an event that takes place right after Jesus and the apostles descend from the mountain, an episode detailed in the Gospels. This scene starkly contrasts with the upper section. It's chaotic, deeply human, and markedly different from the divine serenity depicted above. It is characterized by earthly colors and chaotic arrangements. And what's fascinating is how Raphael uses geometric forms, borrowed from Leonardo da Vinci's techniques, to guide your eye. In the top half, a triangle leads your attention to Christ, while in the bottom half, the figures form a broken circle, representing the chaos of human struggle. This smart use of shapes highlights the contrast between the divine order above and the human disorder below. But the real magic is Raphael's use of a technique called chiaroscuro, or the play of light and shadow. Here, Christ is illuminated, bathed in divine light, while the darker tones in the lower section heighten the emotional weight of the apostles' struggle. This subtle balance of light and shadow not only reveals volume and depth, but also conveys spiritual symbolism, emphasizing a divide between divine and earthly realms. By bringing these two distinct biblical events together in a single composition, Raphael effectively conveys the message that faith in the divine is essential for overcoming the struggles and limitations of human frailty. Dissecting the whole painting could be endless, but I'm not here to give more art history lessons. But why does this matter for Sunday's splash art? Much like the dual events in the Transfiguration by Raphael, Sunday's art presents a layered narrative, intertwining his past, present, and future. And just as Raphael's painting captures the duality of divine enlightenment and suffering, Sunday's art reflects that same contrast. With the Transfiguration as our foundation, let's now dive into Sunday's art and explore how similar themes are reflected. And of course, I will delve deeper into each of these symbols because, well, let's just say I'm the most sane Sunday fan out there, right? Ha ha! All right, let's break down the composition of Sunday's splash art. One of the first things you'll notice is this contrast between the heavenly, divine elements and the darker, more grounded ones. Up top, we've got halos, golden light, and even feathers, really giving off this almost angelic, enlightened vibe. Sunday is portrayed as stepping into this divine space, surrounded by this glowing aura. But then, if you look down, things start to shift. You've got these dark clouds swirling around, thorns creeping up, and his posture, almost like he's struggling to break free or rise above something. This contrast between the light above and the darkness below is super intentional. It's telling us that while Sunday is reaching for something higher, there's still a lot holding him down, whether it's his past, his struggles, or just the weight of the world. Now let's talk about symmetry and asymmetry. Sunday's pose and the way his clothing flows aren't perfectly symmetrical. If you look closely, you'll notice one of his wings isn't even fully visible. This imbalance adds a layer of tension to the piece, fitting the mythical imagery of a fallen angel that has lost divinity, but could also symbolize incomplete power and striving for fulfillment. The thorns wrapping on one leg illustrates he's stuck between two worlds, one foot in the divine and one still grounded in struggle. But let's not overlook how the geometric composition plays a crucial role in guiding our eyes. Much like in Raphael's The Transfiguration, a clear triangular formation draws our gaze upwards toward the divine scene. Similarly, in Sunday's art, layers of halos and golden rays ascend towards the top, focusing our attention on the enlightened elements. Sunday's pose further reinforces this upward movement, centered and reaching upwards. While not as rigidly structured as Raphael's triangle, there's still a sense of vertical movement. This upward stretch contrasts with the darker elements below, where swirling clouds form an incomplete or broken circle, and encircling thorns ground the composition. These distinct geometrical compositions juxtaposes the concept of the divine order above and the earthly disorder below. And talking about vivid contrasts, let's focus on fascinating interplay of light and dark. Notice the golden rays, celestial figures, and the brilliant glow enveloping Sunday. These elements do more than just highlight his figure. They symbolize his divine or transcendent nature. When you shift your gaze, you'll see the darker elements grounding the scene. The swirling clouds, the roots of the entwining thorns, and the dark night sky. Each of these contributes to a narrative of struggle and endurance. This play of light against dark draws from Raphael's intention behind the chiaroscuro technique, emphasizing the dual aspects of Sunday's journey, the aspirations he reaches for, and the hardships he must endure. All right, let's move past the technical stuff and get into the nitty-gritty. When you look closely, you'll notice multiple halos surrounding Sunday. In classical art, halos were typically associated with divine beings, signifying their enlightenment, spiritual power, or divine connection. But Sunday's halos take this symbolism a step further. Each halo is unique. His primary physical halo is mimicked by another behind him. A larger one shines down from above, and the radiant golden bars, which are similar to Gopher Wood's halo. Each halo layer could symbolize the understanding or insight he has gained, as well as the philosophical and existential contemplation that have influenced him, such as the teachings of order and his eventual conflict with the harmony. I might miscount, but together they symbolize different phases of his journey, marking his evolution from one state of understanding to another. As we recall from the Transfiguration by Raphael, Christ's divinity is conveyed through the reactions of the apostles, who shield their eyes in awe of his radiance. The brightness is shown indirectly, reflected in their expressions. In contrast, Sunday's splash art uses multiple halos and radiant golden rays to directly highlight his enlightenment, allowing the viewer to experience this ascent firsthand. Another key detail is in many religious and historical contexts, halos originate from the concept of the sun, symbolizing divine light or heavenly power. The sun itself has always been seen as a life-giving force that guides and nurtures. Here, the halos could represent his aspiration to be a guiding light for others, or perhaps even his connection to something greater, whether that's the divine, the universe, or some higher purpose, a metaphor of his long-dreamed paradise.
I shall ascend to the heavens, becoming the scorching sun. Bathed in my light, my people shall flourish, while all evil shall be eradicated.
After all, the sun itself is a star.
In our paradise, I believe there will be a star like that, shining with the same light. Its radiance will last forever, and its name will be happiness.
Now, let's move on to see his new outfit. But first, we have our lovely TA Solaris to help us strip Sunday and explore his clothing. His clothing is intentionally unbalanced. The asymmetrical placement of gold, white, and navy in Sunday's outfit emphasizes the tension between his celestial aspirations and inner conflicts. These colors not only resemble Ina the Order's palette, manifesting his core beliefs, but also serve to visually highlight his journey. Gold symbolizes his divine aspirations. White represents his purity, spiritual enlightenment, and new beginnings, while navy reflects the strength, authority, and knowledge he's gained through his struggles. Together, they underscore the contrast between Sunday's higher goals and the challenges he's overcome to reach them. However, the asymmetrical flowy cut feels like they're echoing Shipe the harmony. In fashion sense, it introduces an element of dynamic movement, which could symbolize the continual adaptation and fluidity required in his quest. In contrast to the structured and rigid aspects of his previous attire, the flowy elements suggest flexibility and the capacity to navigate through turmoil. Also notice the subtle geometric patterns inspired by Shipei. These loops, displayed as strap belts, are carefully placed throughout his outfit, hinting at his connection to the path of harmony. The structural design, fastened with symbols of the order, reflects a fusion of harmony's balance with order's foundation. It's an embodiment of the ideals he once struggled to achieve. But that's not the only thing that has changed. Notice his symbol on his left side? It still does hold similar elements of his previous one, the order-like symbol, but instead of a circle, it is substituted with a star. This can signify a transformation from being merely a follower or enforcer of order to someone who now shapes or influences it. The star symbolizes his personal enlightenment and individuality, suggesting he has transcended or evolved beyond the original doctrines of order, which he had already manifested in the previous Penacuni quests. You can watch a video about it that I have already discussed before. Stars also often represent navigation and hope, and the star on Sunday's emblem highlights his role as a guiding light, leading and inspiring others. This aligns with his narrative of creating a better reality, where he lights the path toward a new paradise. In his new design, the star carries the same meaning, but it is more sharply refined, placed prominently atop the white eye-like base, which signifies a clearer focus in Sunday's vision. This refined emblem encapsulates his aspirations and reinforces their importance in defining his character. The sun rays design on his symbol reinforces Sunday's transformation. In the old design, the sun rays were placed in between the star and the eye-like frame, suggesting that the Order's principles were still the foundation of his beliefs, guiding his decisions. But now, in the new design, the rays are placed below the eye-like frame, becoming the base of the entire symbol. It serves as a metaphor that Sunday's ideals are still based on the Order's principles, but they are now guided and enhanced by his own enlightenment, blending old beliefs with new aspirations. The old design was also more subdued, implying potential and a subtle influence. Now, the sun rays have become way more detailed and maturely designed, taking shape in a way that is similar to the halos we talked about earlier. But let's not overlook the addition of feathers. This feather suggests lightness and freedom, especially in how his wing designs are now fully visible, rather than tucked away. Visually, it represents Sunday's shift from controlling to guiding. Now, he promotes freedom and personal growth, integrating his ideals in a way that respects others' will and choices. Instead of directing their paths, he aims to inspire and uplift those he leads. This marks a personal evolution in his character and a transition in his leadership approach.
Instead of forcing others toward a preset happiness, my brother is now trying to trust in people's own self-realization and help them. His ideals might not be realized anytime soon, but he can definitely go further than he once did.
But enough about his wardrobe, let's talk about these guys. These creatures are called Echo of Faded Dreams. They represent the memories of someone's beloved family that linger with Sunday, accompanying him across all phases of his life, past, present, and future. You might have noticed how they're mostly present with him from childhood to his grand boss battle. They are with him during his struggles and triumphs, a constant reminder of what he's lost and what he's fighting for. Their depiction across time suggests that his past, with all its joys and sorrows, continues to play a crucial role in affecting how he interacts with the world and pursues his goals. Therefore, their presence is important here, as these echoes symbolize the emotional ties that bind him to his past experiences, shaping his motivations and his actions today. In Chinese, they are called 旧梦的回声. The word 旧 literally translates to old, or past, but carries a sense of nostalgia and familiarity as these dreams linger over time. Interestingly, the English translation adds a poetic touch by using faded instead of old. This choice brings out the sense of loss and longing inherent in the original wording. Echoes suggests faint remnants, meaning that while the memories persist, they are only incomplete traces of the original experiences. And this detail is shown in the art itself, how the varying opacity of these echoes could represent the varying clarity or influence of past memories on Sunday's present and future. Memories that are clearer and more visible could be those currently impacting his decisions or state of mind more heavily, while the fainter one suggests past influences that are becoming less potent in his current psyche, yet still part of the complex mosaic that defines him. This is a creative way to depict how some aspects of our past are not always in the forefront of our consciousness, but still play a crucial role in shaping who we are and how we behave. We've touched on the clouds before, but let's dive deeper because they carry significant symbolism. In many artworks and stories, dark clouds often represent impending challenges or foreshadow significant events, acting as a visual warning. In Sunday's splash art, they serve a similar purpose, hinting that despite his aspirations, more struggles are still yet to come. But these clouds are more than just a symbol of future challenges. The way they encircle Sunday creates a sense of being surrounded or weighed down by his past. Positioned mostly below him, they contrast sharply with the bright celestial elements like the halos and golden rays, visually separating his darker past from the brighter future he seeks. And the clouds don't just sit there, they almost move around him. This dynamic movement suggests that even as Sunday reaches upward toward enlightenment or his goals, the shadows of his past remain with him, never completely gone. They serve as a reminder that while he's making progress, his journey is still shaped by what he's endured. Protruding from the clouds are these mystical thorns, something that's been a signature part of Sunday's character design, even in his older versions. Thorns carry significant symbolism, often representing suffering and sacrifice, especially in Christian beliefs. For example, the crown of thorns worn by Jesus during the crucifixion is a powerful symbol of pain and redemption, though, of course, this is a simplified example to give context. Here, these thorns seem to wrap around him, almost like chains, symbolizing how he's bound to his past struggles and the pain he's had to endure. However, they also tell a story of resilience. If you look from another perspective, the ones that are wrapping around him almost seem to be helping to lift him up, blending into the ethereal motifs surrounding him. This could suggest that his suffering or the trials he's undergone are actually part of what elevates him to a higher state. It's showing how the thorns are essential to his path or growth, turning his pain into something more divine. This is also reflected in the gradual color schemes. Darker shades of purple are traditionally associated with suffering, mystery, and the unknown. Meanwhile, lighter purple hues are psychologically known to be calming, evoking peace and relaxation. Gold, as we know, is a color of luxury and represents success, enlightenment, and aspirations. Thus, Sunday's resolution or a break from the chaos is suggested as the dark purple changes and becomes lighter. The meaning of the thorns changes as the ones that continue to grow turns gold, symbolizing Sunday's triumph and overcoming. Since we talked about the echoes of faded dreams, there's a subtle, almost hidden layer of numerology at play in this artwork. At first glance, it seems like there are 7 echoes surrounding him. As most of us are aware, Sunday's lore is heavily inspired by the Bible. Therefore, the number 7 carries a deep meaning. Biblically, 7 often symbolizes completeness or divine perfection. For instance, in the book of Genesis, it is mentioned that God created the world in 6 days and rested on the 7th, symbolizing the complete cycle of creation. Likewise, 7 is also central to the order's path. Ina, the eon of order, shaped the world through a structured 7-day cycle, each day introducing a critical aspect of existence. truth, time, language, values, laws, and ultimately, meaning. The seventh day, in both Sundays and biblical contexts, marks a point of finality. This makes Sunday's 7 echoes very significant, as they stand for the many stages of his journey, with each echo symbolizing a struggle or memory that he has already overcome. But aha, I lied. It's not just 7. Upon closer inspection, there's an 8th echo, subtle but present. If we count again, there is 1 echoes of faded dream barely visible on the top right. But what does this mean? The biblical significance number 8 often symbolizes new beginnings, renewal, and resurrection. In Sunday's case, it could indicate that his journey is far from over. Rather than merely marking the end of his trials, it suggests a renewal of purpose. Hence, on the 8th day, the fall of harmonious choir, the great Septimus was not only the death of a dream, but also the rebirth of a new one. In the splash art, an 8th echo of faded dreams, not necessarily tied to a specific echo, symbolizes a new memory, a new chapter in his evolution. At last, it's time to talk about the focal element of this artwork. The golden feather is one of the brightest elements in the entire piece, almost glowing against the backdrop of the light behind it. This is no coincidence, as we've already talked about the significance of light and gold, representing enlightenment, divinity, and higher aspirations. And feathers often symbolize lightness, freedom, and ascension, so the golden feather could represent not just his goal, but something purer or a deeper truth. However, positioned above Sunday, it appears to be floating or descending, creating a subtle sense of movement. Hence, the downward motion reflects that hope is not entirely out of reach, even in the face of adversity. While this analysis revolves around time, it took me a while to decipher which element symbolizes the phases of his journey, but I realized I was looking at it from the wrong perspective. As we discussed earlier, each visual element can be interpreted differently. Instead of representing isolated moments in his life, the elements symbolize the fluidity and continuity of his experiences. It shows how life goes in cycles, with ups and downs, where hardships and triumphs keep coming around and shaping each other. But if we look at the bigger picture and combine these elements, it tells more than one story. Each part can be seen in different ways, creating multiple interpretations. To give one example, Sunday may appear to be falling, as his clothes are naturally moving upward, which adds to the sense of downward motion. The dark clouds could represent his past struggles, but they also foreshadow a chaotic future, manifesting as earthly disorder. Paradoxically, the further he falls, enlightenment follows, symbolized by the feather descending toward him. Meanwhile, the thorns symbolize the difficulty of change and the sacrifices tied to his descent. Change is often painful and challenging, requiring us to let go of old ways and endure hardships to grow. And this is especially true for Sunday, who grew up under the strong influence of order and gopher wood. His hand gestures add a narrative touch. One hand reaches for the feather, wanting enlightenment, while the other hand reaches downward, receptive to the chaos and the hardships below, as if offering a hand to those still entangled in worldly struggles. In this interpretation, the encircling clouds represent the chaotic future he is descending toward, while the thorns symbolize his present struggles and painful sacrifices that entangle him as he falls. Above him lies the divine state of his past, where he once achieved an eon-like status, echoing Jade's remark that he has fallen from grace. Finally, we now have a clearer understanding how Sunday's splash art tells his story. The composition, layout, and visual symbols make the art a dynamic representation of his complex past, transformative present, and promising future. Much like Raphael's The Transfiguration, Sunday's splash art captures different moments in time while maintaining a sense of continuity within a frame. Raphael showed both the divine and earthly struggles simultaneously, and here we see a similar balance, where Sunday bridges his hardships, growth, and aspirations. But this is where both of the concepts diverge. As opposed to the complete revelation seen in Raphael's depiction of the Transfiguration of Christ and the event itself from the Bible, Sunday's portrayal emphasizes a journey of transformation that is still in progress. He is not yet in a state of complete enlightenment, but rather in a dynamic state of becoming. His trials, represented by the thorns and dark clouds, suggest that his pursuit of enlightenment is an ongoing journey rather than a final, completed act. Unlike the complete revelation seen in divine figures, Sunday's story is much like the average human experience, just like the rest of us. It tells an ongoing journey full of struggle, uncertainty, and growth. And sure, he might be a Halovian or more divine, but remember, the cost of his eon-like state was bearing immense suffering he willingly endured. It was a choice he made out of necessity, not destiny.
Well, there can't be two suns in the sky. I'll step up and take down the other sun if necessary.
You've always been wise beyond your years. I'm sure you understand the consequences of your choice.
We're not prophets or messiahs. We're all navigating challenges and aspirations. Therefore, it's not about being perfect or reaching some final state of enlightenment. Instead, it's about constantly striving, learning, and evolving. In life, we don't have everything figured out, and we're not free from challenges. Like Sunday, we're in the middle of our own personal stories, reaching for our goals while dealing with setbacks, hardships, and the weight of our past. This art beautifully reminds us that it's okay to be in that process, to be unfinished. In fact, the Transfiguration painting itself wasn't even fully finished by Raphael due to his sudden death, yet it created a profound impact on historical art. Therefore, life is about progress, not perfection. And it's through those struggles that we find our strength, discover our purpose, and continue moving forward. There's a lot more to say, like that mysterious book he has with him, but unfortunately time is a constraint. However, to end our little journey on Sunday Splash Art, I'll relate it back to the description it was posted with.
There's always a paradise that needs to be built. That vow is like the sun in the sky. Perhaps I'll melt and fall before reaching it. But some hardships I must endure.
The sun imagery ties into the recurring themes we've discussed, such as the radiant sun rays and the halos, symbolizing an almost unreachable ideal of enlightenment, or a paradise. It also recalls the story of Icarus. But unlike his reckless pursuit of glory, Sunday soars with purpose. He knows he's going to struggle, failed yet even sacrificed in the process, but he continues on. Perhaps this is the main reason why his devoted fans are attached to him, the admiration of his endurance. Another important message is understanding what their original intent means. It reveals that Sunday's ultimate goal isn't tied to the creation of paradise itself, but to the deeper, shared intent behind Ina, the Order, to minimize human suffering. This is the true revelation he seeks. Not a perfect utopia, but a world where compassion prevails and the journey itself becomes the path toward enlightenment. And with that, perhaps we're about to witness how this traveler will succeed in achieving that.